wanted to share some thoughts that I've been thinking about for a while. Excuse me, I have a little something in my chest. And then, of course, I want to answer any questions or comments that you folks have. But before I get started, I just wanted to say congratulations to the whole community out there. We have really grown, as Ram has said, around the world, because really at the end of the day, we have never been more relevant than we are today. This is when we really shine in times of disruption. But India did a great job. Over 100% growth last year and 100% retention. That is fantastic. And I loved listening to what the members were saying about things that they would like to see new or improved for TAB. I love hearing it. But during this time, during COVID, how everyone collaborated, how you worked together, how you shared your resources, how you supported each other is nothing less than inspiring. And I want to say thank you to all of you. I want to welcome, I know that we've expanded in India, and we have 2 new regions coming online with 2 board members from Pondicherry and Chennai. I'm sure I'm going to butcher some of the names I've never been very good at pronouncing some of the cities there. And we have 2 new TAB business owners in the regions from Rajkot and Surat. I'm sure I heard that one too. But welcome. The fact is our footprint is growing and expanding. And I'm just so proud and delighted. And next year we'll be all together and we will break bread and start building a relationship in person. So I thought I'd share some thoughts I've been thinking about for a while, and I've been sharing it with some folks, and I thought maybe you'd find it interesting as well, because this has been a weird time. If you really think about where we are, 2020 was not a very interesting year, right? I don't think any of us would recommend it. It's been a year like no other in our lifetime. And many of us would probably love to forget this very unforgettable year. Think back to the beginning of 2020. The economy, for the most part, around the world was doing pretty nicely. And many of us were feeling pretty good about our business and optimistic about how our business would perform in 2020. But I want to ask a question. How many of you actually had a pandemic as one of your risks when you were doing your planning for 2020? None of us, absolutely none of us. And it was strange how it all started, wasn't it? There were rumblings about a virus, but it all seemed so far away. It seemed so distant. And then out of nowhere, just like that, bam, it hit us like a freight train. Lockdowns were starting, and many of us as business owners were really scared about how our business would survive and what would we be doing in the new reality. Well, I have to say that, when I think about it, fortunately, us at TAB, we knew that when we were in this storm, that the one thing that we had to do was remain calm. And the reason we could say that is we've been here before. Over the course of the last 30 years, TAB has guided our members through multiple downturns. And we even started the TAB concept back in a recession in 1990. And between 2000 and 2003, we helped our members navigate Y2K, the dot-com bust, the 9/11, and from 2007 through 2009. We helped our members go through the global financial collapse way better than most folks. And so here we are again, 10 months into a global pandemic. Well, the fact is, whether it's due to a pandemic or an other type of challenge, all of us, all business owners will encounter some storms. Clear skies are going to ultimately cloud over and things are going to seem dark. They absolutely are. There's no way about it. And these can be very scary times. They can be uncertain times, especially for us as business owners. And when the lockdowns began, I know that many of us weren't really sure about what our next steps needed to be. However, I'm absolutely confident, I absolutely believe in my heart of hearts that we all knew that the response that we did take was not to just sit there and do nothing. You see, one of the biggest factors that I'm finding in succeeding despite challenging circumstances is our willingness to step into the storm. So, what is it? What is it that makes us more willing to do that than others? And that's what I'd like to share with you a little bit today. You see, I believe that TAB members already have more safety, more confidence from a storm than many other business owners, leaders, or entrepreneurs. And that's because when you surround yourself with a trusted board of advisors, a coach, you benefit enormously from the collective wisdom of that success of those business owners who have your back, just like you're experiencing right now with this meeting, where people share their experience only to help you make better decisions. I love this formula, E plus R equals O. See, in Jack Canfield's book, The Success Principles, successful people, they take a different response to events. Now, you might know Jack Canfield as the publisher of a book series called Chicken Soup for the Soul. But in the Success Principles, he wrote this formula, E plus R equals O, which really stands for events plus response equals outcome. And what that means is events happen. We can't control that they do happen. But what we can control is our response and how we respond to them. Now, most people, when they experience a bad outcome, they blame the event, or they create excuses for the bad outcome based on bad events. It could be the weather. It could be the government. You think we have a little bit of government problems going on right now? I don't want to talk about it. Being raised in a broken home, not having the best education, you name it. If there's going to be a negative outcome, it has to be because of a bad event. But you see, Jack noticed something different. Jack noticed that successful people, they did not respond to negative events in the same way. And that the only way that we have better outcomes in our life is to have better responses to events. Like this pandemic, it's out of our control. But the only thing that's going to produce a better outcome is by changing our response to that event, by leaning in, by going into the storm, by playing offense. And to be successful in life, we have to change our thinking. We have to be able to throw out our old beliefs and develop new ones. And we have to change our behaviors. Now, Jack noticed that not only do you have to change your behaviors, though, and change your whole mindset, that you have to, when you play offense, when you lean in, that it's about taking action. It's not about burying your head in the sand or ignoring what's going on around us. That's not what we're talking about. And yes, let me be clear. I don't want to oversimplify this. It can be, and it is very, very difficult to react positively to a huge negative event. But the first place where we all need to start is letting go of our limiting beliefs. So what is a limiting belief? A limiting belief is a state of mind. It's a conviction or belief that we have that really actually limits us in some way, shape, or form. A limiting belief could be about you. It could be about your interactions with other people. It could be about the world or how it works. Limiting beliefs can have a number of negative effects on you and your business as well as your personal life. They are anchors. They are anchors that stop us from taking action. And in many cases, it stops us from taking bold action when we need to. And they keep us from making sound choices and taking new opportunities. And they hold us back from reaching our potential. So take a look at this graphic. Does it resonate with anybody? There's a man there and he's bound by two rubber bands. One is pulling him towards his vision and one is pulling him away. So the question is he ever going to get there? Well, not if he's held back by his beliefs that he's unworthy or powerless to get there. You see, you cannot move forward in business or life if you're being held back by limiting beliefs. So I'd like to tell you a little story, if you don't mind. I kind of love this. And it really is a great story about how belief is so powerful in our ability to move forward. So there's this businessman, and he's having a terrible, terrible time in business. And he's really in trouble, and he's not sure how he's going to keep himself from going bankrupt. So he goes to a park because he has to think through. And he sits down on a park bench, and he's sitting there with his head in his hands. And he's sitting there, and he's wondering, and he's thinking about everything he has to do or not do. And he's really stressed out. And while he's sitting there, he feels a presence sit down next to him, and he lifts his head and he looks at this very nice but old man dressed very nicely. And the old man says to the businessman, he says, "Son, what's wrong?" So the businessman goes on and telling him all his challenges and what's going on in the business. And the old man is asking some questions. They're speaking for about 30 minutes. And then all of a sudden the old man says to the businessman, he says, "Son, stop. What's your name?" The man tells him his name, and he reaches into his pocket and pulls out his checkbook. And he writes a check right out to the man's name. And he hands the man a check, and he says, "Listen, son, I believe in you. I believe that you can change this. You meet me here 1 year from today, and you could pay me back this money. But go run your business and be you." And the man takes the check and he looks at it, and he's shocked. He cannot take his eyes off the check. He's never seen one so big. It's for $500,000. And as he's looking at the check and just staring and staring, he looks at the signature, and it's John D. Rockefeller. John D. Rockefeller believes in me. If John D. Rockefeller believes in me, I could believe in me. And he looks up to thank Mr. Rockefeller, and he's gone. He can't believe it. So he goes back to his office, and he takes that check and he puts it into his safe. And then because he had this belief, he started talking, and he started making some deals and renegotiating contracts. And he's wheeling and dealing. And next thing you know, he's closing some business, and he's coming out of debt, and he's renegotiating terms. And all of a sudden he starts being bold and start making some real action. Well, a year goes by, he's out of debt, he's making money, and he cannot wait. He absolutely cannot wait to go back and meet Mr. Rockefeller and tell him what went on with the business. So he goes to the park bench, he sits down, and he's waiting. And just like Mr. Rockefeller said, here he comes walking down just on time, and he's just about to sit down on the bench. And all of a sudden this woman comes running behind him. Right? And comes in, he says, "John, John." And he turns around, the woman grabs him by the arm. And she says, "I'm so sorry, sir. I hope he's not bothering you. He always runs away from the home and tells people he's Mr. Rockefeller. I'm so sorry." And he takes the man and brings him away. And the businessman sat there stunned. He said, "Oh my gosh, all this time I've been wheeling and dealing and buying and selling, convinced that I had this backing of $500,000. And then he sat there and he realized it wasn't the money at all, real or imagined, that turned his life, turned his business around. It was his newfound belief and confidence that gave him the power to move forward, to lean into that storm and take bold action. Belief is so powerful. I love that story. So what makes one business owner? What makes one of us more successful than the other? Well, put it this way. The most important story that we tell ourselves is the one to ourselves, about ourselves, when we are by ourselves. Isn't that true? No doubt about it. And if our business is operating below where we want it to be, what is the story? What's the story that we're telling ourselves and everyone around us in our team? You see, if success is important, then the one story should be about finding a way to achieve success. Or if the story is filled with limiting beliefs, one will find excuses as to why they aren't succeeding. And if we're feeding ourselves stories about how our competitors are preventing us from being successful, or that it's just too tough to find qualified prospects and we can't get them to buy or convert, then our results will reflect that and they will not be great. But what if? What if we change that story around and we tell a new story? We tell a story that we are the very best at what we do, that our employees are dedicated and they are committed to adding value, and that our businesses do add value. And our customers and vendors, they're fortunate to work with us because we care and we do such a very good job. Well, I think it's really worth repeating that when you truly believe that your offering is the very best in the market, that the product or service that you're offering is needed, then your actions will take the very nature that it needs to be the very best that you are. And they will reflect your belief. I love this quote by Michelangelo. The greatest danger for most of us is not that we aim too high and that we miss it, but rather that we aim too low and we reach it. I love this. I often talk about victims and victors. I think it's an amazing concept. It's the Oz principle. I don't know if you're familiar with it. But the Oz principle distinguishes between people who live their life above the line or those of us who live a life below the line. Now, all of us actually from time to time move up and down between them. But hopefully, for the most part, we live our lives as victors. You see, victors practice ownership, accountability, and responsibility. And victims, well, practice blame, excuses, and denial. And I know that the business owners who are making it through this pandemic and are getting to the other side successfully have spent their time living their life and running their business above the line. Now, being a victor means your ability to be able to change your mindset and bring about different challenges about how you look at failure or challenges. See, some of you might be familiar with the growth mindset or the fixed mindset. Those of us with a fixed mindset, we don't like being challenged, and we see failure as the limit to our own abilities. But those of us who've been able to move into a growth mindset, very different. See, those of us with a growth mindset realize that both challenge and failure provide us opportunities to grow and to learn. And at some point, all of us experience challenges and failures. And in fact, many of us during this pandemic, this has been our greatest challenge in our career. And having a growth mindset helps us both focus on the possibilities and turn a negative situation into positive outcomes. Take a look at this. Have you ever noticed, I love this, have you ever noticed that most people live their life with a do, have, be perspective? And what I mean by that is that they believe that if they do the right things, then they'll have what they desire, and only then will they be able to be the person who deserves those things. Well, the late, great personal development guru, Jim Rohn, he asked us to flip this equation around. He asked us to start being the person who would already have done and achieve what they did. Because in that case, they would already start doing what successful people do, which means that you are able to have what you need. You see, having is about the future. Being is about now. So if you start being that person, you do the things that you need to. It's a different way of framing what we have to think about and how we bring about success. Now take a look. I'd like everyone to start writing down, what do you want out of business? What do you want out of life? What do you need to achieve your goal? And all the actions and activity that is going to need to be done to get you there. But just as important as the actions that you're going to take to reach the goal, you need to also focus on who do you need to become to get there. I know during this pandemic, I had to reach deep. I had to reach deep and say, Who do we need to be now to get through where we are? I had to rally my troops to make sure that they could get that mindset because we had to make change. Failure is not an option, but we had to change. We had to be a different group. And I think that's what's so important. So as important, like I said, is what you need to do. Who do you need to become to get there? You see, to have more, each and every one of us, we must first become more. And to become more, we must do more from the beginning of the process by working harder on ourselves than on anything else that we work on. Look, I'm going to give one other suggestion. I'd love to take some questions from you folks. One other area that one could do to strengthen their belief, and I really like this, Jim Rohn says this. He says that you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So I'd like each of us to think about the colleagues with whom we spend our time and the conversations that you have with those folks. You're doing a great job here. You're obviously a group of victors. You're in tab, you're leaning in, you're playing offense. You stepped into the storm. But I'd like to encourage you to seek out and spend time with victors. Spend time with people who practice ownership, accountability, and responsibility, with can-do attitudes, who do whatever it takes to overcome their challenges. You see, people with belief, you're going to find that with their attitudes and their behaviors that we're all talking about by being the victors, it's contagious and you will raise your game. And I just tell you that it's been an honor for all of us to be able to work together to get through this crazy time. And I hope that you're finding the same enthusiasm and excitement during this dark time as you drive through your own business. With your belief and mindset in the right place, it is time to do the things that will drive your success in the future. As our good friend Bill here, I love his quote, strong reasons will take strong actions. And each and every one of you do have a strong reason. So I hope this helps. I hope this be a catalyst of a little bit of thought. I just wanted to share a little bit of what I've been thinking about lately and what I've been sharing with so many business owners around the world. Anyway, I hope this was helpful to you folks, and thank you so much for having me.